Hello, everybody. My name is Tania Hack, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Game for Change. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about the Games for Change Student Challenge, which is one of our youth programs. I hope you all have been enjoying the festival so far, and I hope that you enjoy this panel. So just to share a little bit about the I'm going to give you a quick overview of the program, hopefully in about 5 minutes or less. My friend Brendon Trombley is then going to join the screen and share some information about the assessment that we've been conducting around the program for the last 5 years. I then am going to invite my other panelists to the session, including some of our students, one of our educators, and our anchor partner in Los Angeles. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about the program. Hopefully you can see my slides at this point. As a reminder, you can double click the window or the thumbnail that the slides are in to zoom in on it and make it bigger. So the Games for Change Student Challenge is a program and competition that combines students' passion for games with 21st century skill building and civic engagement. Students across the country participate in the program year-round, both in school, outside of school, and then they also submit their games to an end-of-year competition for the chance to win prizes, a scholarship, and experiences. Why games? Really, we should be asking why not games, but the answer is because kids are super passionate about games. It's their -- pastime, and by teaching students to become not just consumers of games, but creators of games, we're equipping them with the skills that they need to be active citizens and change makers in their own communities. Through game design, they learn a number of very important 21st century skills like communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and in this increasingly technology-driven world, these skills are becoming ever more important. So the program includes a number of different components. At the start of the school year, we kick off with professional development for cohorts of teachers in each participating city. The program currently runs in New York City, Los Angeles, Detroit, and Atlanta. Educators are trained in how to teach impact game design and bring that curriculum back into their classrooms and either integrate the curriculum into an existing course or teach it as part of an after-school program. Those courses run throughout the year in schools across the country, and students also have the opportunity to learn about game design and learn about the themes from experts in the topic areas through our student game jams, which are held on the weekends. There's also a formal assessment that happens around the program, which my friend Brendon will speak further about in a few minutes. The program then culminates in the springtime with a competition. Students can enter their games into the competition. There's an intense jurying process that this year I think involved 160 professionals from the gaming industry, and it culminates in an award ceremony and exhibition of students' games. Typically, those are live events in each city. This past year, the ceremony was, of course, virtual. So the challenge themes and social impact topics are really at the heart of the program. We've worked with a variety of partners around themes that range from inclusive play to youth justice, This past year, 2 of our 4 themes included designing games for all, inclusive play, which was a theme we worked on with AT&T, and was, of course, about making games accessible to everybody and designing for accessibility. We also worked with iCivics around a theme called Get the Party Started, through which students the entrance of a 3rd political party into our current 2-party system, and proposed how they would win the election, the presidential election. In past years, we worked with National Geographic around a theme on endangered species. And during the first year of the program, we worked with the ACLU on a youth justice theme. Partnering with the Student Challenge happens at a number of different levels. Locally, on the city level, we rely heavily on anchor partners who are our city-based partners who actually are in charge of facilitating the program within their city. We work with them very closely throughout the year, and they really help bring the program to life. Theme partners, I spoke about a little bit just now, but theme participate in a number of ways. They develop resources that live on the Student Challenge website and which students then use as research for their games. They participate in the weekend game jam, and they also participate as jurors for the competition and in the award ceremony. Our national partners are primarily funders, and we're so grateful for their support. And it's because of them that we're able to offer this program free of charge to our schools, teachers, and students. So this slide shows you kind of the breadth of different types of partners that we've worked with over the years. This is just a small fraction of the coalition of partners that we've built. And they range from outreach and communication partners to program funders, to theme partners, to local facilitators in each of our cities. So 5 years of impact, that is the topic of this session. To share some numbers with you, over the last 5 years, we've reached almost 30,000 students with the program through our in-school game design courses, our weekend game jams, and the competition. We've trained almost 400 teachers on how to teach impact game design. We've run the challenge in 7 currently it runs in 4 of those 7 cities, New York, LA, Detroit, Atlanta. Students have attended 50 game jams on the weekends. Students have also created almost 3,000 games, which they've submitted to the competition. And importantly, 77% of the participating schools are Title I schools, which of course means that we're reaching underserved in need students. So to share a couple of photos from this past year, these are some students in a prototyping activity at one of our game jams. At our teacher professional development, they also start off with kind of prototyping with physical materials, and then they transition into learning about the curriculum and learning how to build games in Scratch and Unity. And these are some screenshots from students' games that they submitted this past year to our competition. And I hope that you'll be able to see from the next few slides that there's just, you know, a really impressive amount of work being done on these games.
So this is our second year participating in it. The first year I was unable, like 3 years ago, I was unable to join because it conflicted with other commitments. But my students all the time kept asking, well, are we doing anything of this for competition? Is anything of this relevant for us to do at the end of the day? And I said, yes, and let's go for it. So I applied for the grant for training from Games for Change and Mouse, and together they kind of walk us through the creative thinking model. And I was super nervous. There were a lot of teachers there that look much more qualified for doing this than me. And I said, well, you know what? It's an opportunity. Let's try it.
Yeah, that's great.
Trying is the thing that we can do at the moment. So
Luna, it looks like we have Brendon here. I know that Tania was going to throw it over to Brendon. So why don't you and let's hit leave in the top right corner.
Okay.
And we will see more of Luna later.
See you in a little bit.
All right, it's good to see you guys, and I will see you very soon.
Brendon, take it away.
All right. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for coming. Let me just take a second to share my screen, share my slide. Okay, how's that working?
Great. And guys, once again, please double click the slides here so that they are big enough for you to see.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Brendon Trombley, and one of the big things that I did working on the Games for Change Student Challenge program, and I've been involved actually since its inception 5 years ago, I guess 5+ years ago now, I helped design and implement an assessment program. So I'm going to take us through both how it works and some of the results that we've been finding over 5 years now of accumulated data. Okay, so like every good program, every good research project, we need to start with a research question. So what we're trying to investigate here primarily is to figure out how does participating in the design and development of impact games affect key 21st century skills in students. So this entire sort of program that we're looking at here is really looking at these specific skills and what the relationship is between game design and development, especially around impact games. So what are those skills specifically? Now, some people might hear 21st century skills and think like laser, robots, flying cars and stuff. It's actually not that at all. What it is just skills that are critical to somebody's future success, no matter what career they decide to go into in the future. So these are like the future-proof skills that no matter what seismic changes are going to happen in the decades or so between a student being a child and being an adult in the workforce, what are the skills that are going to help them be successful no matter what? Now, these are the 7 skills that we have been primarily focusing on over the years. Now, this list has changed here and there. We've taken some out and added some back in. But this has been a pretty stable list that we've used more recently in the past like 3 years or so. So the top line there, those are what some people know as the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. Those are extremely common anytime you look at 21st century skills lists or articles, or anyone that's talking about these skills are often primarily focusing on those 4. We also added 3 more, agency, empathy, and socio-emotional. These are also pretty common skills, but specifically we added them in so that to be sort of the chosen based on appropriateness to this particular program in game design around impact skills. So these are the 7 skills we're focusing on. But how do we measure something like this? These are not necessarily these are very subjective skills to be able to assess in anybody. So a big challenge in this program was figuring out a structure in which we could at least approximate the value of these skills in students. So this is what the program looks like, sort of at a bird's eye view. The way it works is a pretty standard pre and post. So at the beginning of the student challenge, either semester or year, depending on the teacher's kind of year structure, they implement the same exact set of tools. There are 2 specific tools that are being used here. One is a rubric in which teachers are evaluating their students. And then the other tool is a survey in which students share their own thoughts about 21st century skills and some other things. So those are the 2 main tools. So teacher rubrics, student surveys. Now we've also split up the audience of students into 2 groups. Now this was a split that happened only pretty recently, so we don't have as much data with the split in mind. We have 5 years of game students, but we added this extra group of non-game students into the mix so that we could do better comparison between, okay, do these skills not only just grow while participating in the program, but do they grow more than non-game design classes. So it kind of shakes out into a relatively complicated thing here, but what essentially you have in this diagram, 2 rounds, round 1, round 2, they're the same thing, and 2 audiences of students. So each teacher is essentially taking one of their classes in their game design. These are cohort teachers that we have trained through the professional development, and they're in the partnership with us. They're taking one of their classes from the game design segment of their schedule, and then they're taking some other class that they might have. This could be a comp sci class, a science class, some like digital arts sorts of classes. Every teacher's got a different situation, but as long as it was a non-game class, it kind of like counted. And we administer the same things, both in the round 1 and the round 2. So let me make sure I've gotten kind of all of the points I wanted on there. Yes, I have. One thing is that this is designed specifically keeping the needs of teachers in mind, and with a great respect for teachers. Firstly, we want it to be like lightweight for them. So that it's just not, teachers are extremely overloaded, busy. We wanted to make sure we were designing a program that just wasn't too onerous for them to participate in, because we knew we would get better participation, of course, if it was lightweight. And also, we're putting a lot of respect and trust in our teachers to do a lot of subjective evaluation of their students, and a lot of trust in our students to do some subjective evaluation. Now, of course, with all the subjectivity, it's kind of a big challenge. And how do we sort of encapsulate that all into a understandable kind of research output? So the next slide, which I accidentally gave you a sneak peek of a second ago, is a big example of kind of how we did it. So like I said, the teachers evaluated their students with a 21st century skills rubric. This is an example of just one of the skills. So imagine this diagram kind of times 7, 1 for each skill. And there are 4 levels per skill, which then we could, through the magic of spreadsheets, convert the results to a number. And then that number could then be used to generate averages and kind of quantify it in a way. The way that this rubric is designed is based on our work with the Institute of Play. Began with this program began, especially the assessment aspect, in really strong partnership with the Institute of Play. And this is kind of how they designed their rubrics, splitting along 4 levels: novice, apprentice, senior, master. And if you look closely, master, one thing that really makes a master rise above the rest is that they help and teach and support others in that skill. So I wanted to make sure that we included that when we did this. So the form, this was actually just a Google form that every teacher was able to access and input multiple times for each of the students in the rubric, so that we could easily take that and turn it into some numbers. One thing I wanted to point out, of course, is that these 21st century skills are, a little mushy, and there's no kind of one universal way to define one of these skills. So this rubric was, a best attempt at defining the skills in some way or another. And the other major thing, of course, is we know that we are measuring these skills as defined by the rubric. The rubric is really the key for everything. So, there may be other ways to define communication or collaboration or something like that. But we had to kind of put a stake in the ground and choose a definition that would work for us and that the teachers can understand, and therefore evaluate their kids on. Okay, so let's go look at some results. This is the exciting part of everything, right? Okay, this is a little bit of a complex thing, but we have 2 major rows here. One is the growth in the game students, and one is the growth in the non-game students along all 7 of these skills. Now, these numbers specifically are from our pool of data points that is sort of the purest, meaning that these are only the data points in which we got the same student assessed by the same teacher at the beginning and the end of a student challenge program. We've actually gotten many thousands of data points, but due to all the kinds of errors that can happen, it kind of gets whittled down to a bit of a smaller group. And especially these non-game students, it's a pretty small pool right now because we've only been running the non-game segment of the assessment for about 2 years. But as far as we are now, these numbers are showing some really amazing findings. As you can see, we have positive growth pretty much in every skill, and even across both of the audiences. But as you can see, we're seeing, five-ish, almost 7, 6, good chunks of percentages, more growth in the game students across all of these skills. Even like to the point where some of these non-game things are seeing like a slight negative growth, while the game students are seeing the positive growth. So this is supporting the theory that participating in game design for impact games is providing stronger situations, practice areas to develop these skills. And so it's extremely exciting. I want to see, 5 more years of data so that we can really start to see how these numbers shake out with a lot more data points. Another thing that we did is, so this is extremely exciting. I just got to hang on it for just a moment because it's a really, really exciting thing. But I did want to show another really cool thing that we've discovered, and this is actually, I sort of applied the methodology similarly to the survey results that the kids did. So we had them rate their own classes on how they thought these specific skills were being defined and developed. We didn't use the same exact words. We used more kid-friendly facing things. But here's the results of that. And in a similar way, just like with this one, I took those 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, took the average from the pre and the post and then measured the percent growth. And you actually get to see the round 1 and 2 data here. So once again, 2 rows, game students, non-game students. This was done on a scale of like, does this class support an X skill? And they could strongly disagree, I'm not sure, agree, and strongly agree. And I just gave them, -2, -1, 0, 1, or 2, and then averaged all those out. So as we can see also, and this is an aggregate of all the things that we asked them. So we did ask them things like creativity, teamwork, goal setting, student-friendly facing language. So the aggregate of all of the skills in the game students was, in both round 1 and round 2, higher than the non-game students. And when you measure the growth, meaning they thought they at the end of the program, they could reflect backwards and see they saw more growth than the non-game students. So kind of in a couple different slices, the way that we look at the data, we're seeing that even according to students, a class that support, a class in which they do game design around social impact issues is helping them practice and develop these skills. Moving on, our research went into a few other areas, asking kids some extra things. And I was noticing over the years that this survey ends up looking kind of identical from city to city until Detroit joined the program. And I did a little bit of comparing and contrasting, Detroit versus Atlanta, LA, and New York City. And through the questions that we asked in the surveys, saw some striking differences between Detroit and the other cities. We've seen that they were getting lower averages in the 21st century skills. They find themselves less likely to play games outside of school, less previous experience creating their own games. They have less certainty about college and STEAM careers. STEAM, if you don't know, is STEM with arts attached to it. And they even have a higher preference towards working individually rather than collaboratively. So this was just a really interesting insight that was a little surprising, and I wanted to sort of bring it out as just showing that, the impact of this program, I think, has a lot of challenge, but also a lot of opportunity in a city like Detroit. And if we can pay special attention to these sorts of findings, we can maybe cater and develop the program in ways that can really make a huge difference in places like Detroit. Before I move us along, I wanted to do one more thing, which is just kind of show everyone what it's all about. We've also collected teacher testimonials in this program. In the rubric, they had an optional place to do it. So I just wanted to share one of them from last year that I think really encapsulates what we're going for with this whole program. This student grew a lot in his class, especially from an empathy and socio-emotional perspective. He gained a lot of confidence and completed 2 full-length games by the end of the year. Although he chose to work alone, he did collaborate with different student groups along the way and recognized that the speed and quality of his work may have increased exponentially had he been with the right partners. I think this is just a great example of a teacher really identifying the growth and the impact of this kind of program and this kind of class on kids developing these skills. And, like I said, whether the student becomes a game designer or not in the future, the skills that he's taking away can be applied to any future that he chooses for himself. So yeah, with that, can I invite everybody else to come back on the screen so we can talk a bit more about the program? And I'm going to end my screen share.
I'm leaving.
Hi, Rana.
Hey, I was gonna for Tania, but I'm not needed here, so I'll be on standby in case anything else happens. And watching. Enjoy.
All right. I'll see you later.
Great. I apologize, everyone, for my internet connectivity issues. But welcome to all my panelists. And thank you, Brendon, for sharing all of that amazing research that you've been doing over the last 5 years. It's so exciting to be able to kind of look back and see these trends and takeaways kind of on the scale that we've been able to. So thank you so much for your hard work. So can I ask each of my panelists to please introduce yourself, maybe starting with Leah, and can you tell us a little bit about what you do, what your relationship is to the Student Challenge, and that's probably good.
Sure. I'm Dr. Leah Haynes, and I am the CEO and chief juggler at the. And we were the anchor partners for the Games for Change Los Angeles program in partnership with Games for Change and Annenberg Learner. It's been a really wonderful experience for our group. We work in education on a lot of different fronts. We had not, we started with more the maker community and then added the technology. And so marrying those two has been a really exciting and rewarding program. And we do a lot of professional development. So the professional development that was needed to get this up and running in Los Angeles was really, a lot of fun for us. And to us, the educators are the rock stars. We really try to appreciate and celebrate what they are willing to do and capable of doing. So our hats off to the educators, and we love working with students. So just watching the process with students who some come in with absolutely no experience at all. And it'll be interesting this year. My worry with it was more intense a few months ago than it is now, because we've done a few projects that have been totally remote, and the students have been really engaged, and it's been really valuable experience. So I'm happy to be part of this, happy to be here. And we're about to go into year 3 together, aren't we, Tania?
Yes, absolutely. Luna, do you want to introduce yourself? Luna is one of our New York City cohort educators.
Hola, everybody. Luna Ramirez from Information Technology High School. My school is in Long Island City, which is right next to the Queensboro Bridge. And I will tell you, it's a super hyper diverse group. And like Brendon and Tania pointed out earlier, they are Title I, and many of them come to my school like, that is not for me. But they end up having a lot of fun, and they love the program. And I got this little thing for their work. I didn't do anything. They did all the work, but Games for Change recognized me, and I will say that this belongs not only to me, but to all the teachers out there who are doing the best they can to promote these ideas among the students.
That's awesome.
I think, Tania, we cannot hear you. Tania, you're in mute.
I think it's because she took out her headphones.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go next. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Sarah Applebaum. I was the 20 grand prize winner in New York City this year. Yay! I made my game through the School of Interactive Arts, which is in Manhattan, in Chelsea. And I am a graduating senior this year, so in the fall, I'm going to be virtually attending college, unfortunately, at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And I'm going to be majoring in information technology with a specialization in video games.
Yay!
Yay!
Koen, why don't you go ahead?
So my name is Koen Victorica, and I am a 3 times award-winning developer for the Student Challenge in Atlanta. And I've just been making the games because it's something I've been wanting to do since middle school, and it's a career path I'm looking towards going into. So I was looking for some way to challenge myself, and I found the Student Challenge, and I thought I might as well try it.
Great. Okay, I'm back.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Arana. I'm the managing director at Games for Change, and I'm going to jump in for Tania while she's having technical difficulties. So I wonder if, we started with an introduction to the program, and Brendon was able to give us an introduction and an overview of the findings of the program. But really, the most valuable way to understand something is to hear about it from the people who live it and breathe it and participate in it every year. So it would be really interesting, I think, for our viewers to hear from your perspectives what you think the biggest takeaways from the program are. We have varying perspectives here. We have the partner perspective, the teacher perspective, the student perspective. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about how it has impacted you, impacted you in surprising ways, and for Leah and Luna, how you've seen growth in both teachers and students. It would be great. So whoever would like to start, maybe we can start with the students. Sarah, do you want to start?
Sure. I think one of the biggest impacts Game for Change has had on me was some sort of like social impact in mind. Because I've been making games for a little while, not too long, but I've mostly just made like small games, like little platformers, like jump around, collect coins, kill enemies. But I think this is like the first time I've actually really put my energy into making a game that matters. I made a game with the theme of the accessibility for disabilities. And it was the first time that I really sat down and considered that a lot of games don't have accessibility options. And so participating in Games for Change, it opened my mind to the world that people with disabilities live in and how I can help to make that easier.
So for me, over the past 3 years, I initially was just looking for a way to challenge myself and, develop skills. But from there, it really helped to have these different topics in mind when I was creating the game. It allowed a lot more critical thinking. Like Sarah said, I've made games that are just like, mindless. There's no real plot or anything. It's just, you just complete an objective. But now when you create it with a purpose, you can make a game around an idea instead of just like a gameplay concept. So it really helps me with like critical thinking and problem solving. And especially I work independently. So it really helps with like finding solutions to a lot of the debugging process when actually making the game. So it's really helping me engage my brain and, challenge myself.
Great. And Leah, I'm really interested to hear, because you've seen maybe not so much cohorts of students, but cohorts of teachers. I'm really interested to hear about what you've seen from your perspective on how it's impacting the teacher practice.
Yeah, both teachers and the students. And I just want to say that what both Sarah and Koen said are like, that's what gets us up in the morning, right? Like the fact that Sarah saw a talent or an interest that she has in game design and then saw that it can be used to better the world. And that's really ultimately what we're hoping we motivate in everybody, both in the teachers who see this and think, oh my goodness, these kids are engaged in something, that they're learning so many new skills and so many things that I'm guessing that 20 years from now, Sarah and Koen will both be remembering things that were triggered during this time that are still important to their life and their career. And so that's the stuff that really excites me. And with teachers, there have been some teachers who really come in so nervous about anything technical or internet oriented, depending on the age range. So
I see Luna down. Yes,
yeah. Well, we had a teacher come in and at the end of the PD say oh my God, this was so much fun. I hadn't even used a glue gun before. So the idea that we're able to, without a yardstick, but with a carrot, say, oh my, look what's happening over here. And all you have to do is a little bit of this to get yourself there. So I'm very excited about what this offers to educators, and education in general, in my opinion, should start with a joy of some sort, an interest, desire to learn, and then the agency and empathy, all of these things become a natural outpouring of that experience.
Thanks, Luna. And Luna, what about you? What have been your biggest takeaways and surprises, maybe also?
Well, it has been a lot. I've been teaching computer science for a long time in New York City. I started with Cisco networking, but the students, they did a program, and it's the light changing from green to amber to red, and that's the only feedback they got. And the students really quickly didn't get that affirmation of their work, or they didn't feel excited about the results. So I changed, let's try something else, and start building from scratch a web design academy. And because I didn't know anything, like Leah said before, I knew about, I'm a computer engineer, but I didn't know how to pass this knowledge to students. And I'm not a designer. I'm not artistically inclined. I was I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this for the kids. But I tried little by little. And then Games for Change invited me to join. And I said, okay, let's go. Let's try it. And I grew as a teacher. I started by thinking, they take us to this training where they say, okay, this is a regular game, tic-tac-toe, reinvent it. What? Reinvent it? But it's perfect. No, but it can be better. And then you put yourself in the shoes of the students. What I ask the students every day to do, learn something new, try to something new. And a lot of the students are afraid to do it. Me as an adult, of course, I'm afraid to do it. And a lot of teachers are afraid to put themselves out there and say, oops, I made a mistake. But the beauty of doing game design and programming is that the more mistakes you do, the more you learn. The more opportunities to grow are out there. So I've seen a lot of growth on myself, but in the students. Last year, I kept pushing this group of the students that I knew they had the skills, because I didn't want to put anybody into the position of try and fail and bring their auto-esteem down, right? And there was this quiet girl, the most quiet girl. She suffered of anxiety attacks. She would not talk in front of people. But she was brilliant. And 3 of her games went into the finals. And she was like, I don't know, I don't belong here. And then I realized we all suffer of that imposter syndrome. Teachers, students, collaborators, it's supposed to say, like, maybe this is not me, because we lack on that confidence. And a year later, she comes back, she graduated, she came back, and she's the most outgoing person. She's getting all A's in college. She is like amazing. And that happened back in November. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try Games for Change again. But this time I'm going to make everybody do it. And we had about 180 games submitted to Games for Change. And last year we got 5 in the finalists, 3 of them from one girl. And this year we got, I think 7 in the 7 or 10 in the family. I'm not quite sure. But for me, the most important part, it was the part of them learning, okay, let's break this idea. we all know how to play basketball, but how can we break the basketball into the mechanics, the elements, the different parts? What motivates a person to continue dribble the ball and shooting, right? And start to break, reverse engineer a game, and then thinking, okay, now I'm gonna build it in a better way. And not only that, I'm gonna make it in a way that's gonna change society. All my students enjoy it. All my students love it. They do something called peer review, so they get to play each other's game at the end of the practice. And I have a student that kept saying, I only come to school because of this class.
Can I ask, this is an open question. I think the students maybe are best suited to answer it, but just an open question. You mentioned failure and feedback, right, in both of those, which are two really huge components of game design. And I'm just interested to hear from the students, and maybe that might have to say from the assessment piece, just how that felt, like the feeling of having other people play your games, having people give you feedback, failing in front of people, what that feels like, if you find it to be valuable, like that, just some feelings about that.
So for me, I don't work at it at the school. I work at it at home as a side project, but I get feedback from my family, and a lot of the feedback was really great because when I failed, I always fixed the issue, so I had that critical thinking. But the new ideas that I got from my family members, having somebody else give you an idea and then you have to envision it and create it, really makes your mind just like really think about something. And it really, my work ethic when I was working on the games these past 3 years has been higher than it's ever been. I was so excited to just work on the games.
Yeah. Going on with what he said, I think another really important thing I learned from having others play my games and give me criticism was learning how to take criticism. It's a very hard thing to have someone tell you what they don't like about something that you've made, and you just have to take it and use it. So I used to be really upset whenever someone criticized me. I'd be like, how dare you? How dare you tell me what I made isn't perfect? But now, because of this, I think I've learned, it's okay for someone not to like what I've made. And you know what? I can take what they've said, and then I can improve. So I think that's a really valuable skill that I learned from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that shows up in every workforce.
Yeah, well, that's hard for adults. So to learn it at a young age is a great
Yeah,
thing.
I was going to attest, this is a skill I didn't learn until college. So you guys are picking it up much sooner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as someone who manages a team, let me say that the people working with the most are the ones who can take input, critical and otherwise, and evaluate. It doesn't mean you're going to change everything based on what someone else said, but you take in the information, evaluate it. Those are the people I love working with.
Right.
So happy to hear that skill develop.
Yeah. We have about 15 minutes left, and I know that there were two things that I know Tania wanted to do. One was to show some videos of the games, which we obviously cannot do because I don't have access to her videos. But I did want to say that all of the games are available on the Games for Change website, the Student Challenge website. They have the arcade up. So you can look there, and maybe one of the people watching that are Games for Change person can put that link into the chat. So viewers can look at the games. It's worth looking at. They're amazing. And before we open it up to questions, I was wondering, is there anything that anybody on the panel wants to add that we didn't touch upon that you're hoping to get to?
I will say that this program, when they sent us in March back into home, and we had to teach from home, and the students have to learn from home, I was really nervous. How can we do this? And this taught the students perseverance, patience, and never to give up. Gave them an outlet to deal with all the things that are happening right now. And yeah, it's not just the pandemic. It's not just that I was 130 days locked up at home. It's that they are unrest on the street. It's that the there are earthquakes, and there are killer bees, and there are all these things that stress us out in life. And they were able to take this challenge as not as an escape from all that, but also as a way to help the world. Because at the end, I had students changing their whole game because they wanted to do it in COVID, right? And they felt that they were contributing to society, even though they were at home.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, we can open it up to questions. I did see that there were several questions in the chat while we were talking about bringing the Games for Change Student Challenge to your school and how do I get involved. And so I'll address those really quickly, and then if there are any other questions for the panelists, we can move on. But so the Games for Change Student Challenge is expanding. We're so excited next year, officially expanding nationally. We will be we are in the process of creating and will be making available resources for teachers, students, parents, community organizations, museums, nationwide, to be able to implement a course, like a class, there'll be lesson plans, or to do individual work at home. So that will take you through the steps you need to go through to understand how to design a game, how to code, and how to do all those things so that you're able to create a game to submit to the student challenge. We'll also be holding several virtual events for people who are not in a specific location, like game jams, professional development, and meetups. So we hope that lots of people will participate next year that were not able to participate in the past. So that's very exciting. So I hope that answers some of the questions in the chat. And if there are other questions for our panelists about their participation in the Student Challenge, we can take those now either through the chat or through, if you'd like to come on screen and ask the question.
So while we wait for a question, I also just want to point out that Nolan Bushnell did play the games of all of the winners, and I think there's video of that somewhere on your website as well, right? Nolan being the founder of Atari and the sort of daddy of all video games, and a mentor of ours, and just a valued voice on this topic.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question. It's for the students. The question is, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first began your game development? And so then what advice would you give to other students who are just starting?
I would definitely say that I wish I had done more time with developing the idea before I jumped into working on developing a mental prototype, or as you guys do at the game jams, you do the physical prototyping. And I feel like the better idea you get before you actually jump in to start working on something, the better the structure for building the final product will be.
One thing I knew that I wish I knew. I guess this applies if you are working on a game by yourself, but if you're developing a game completely by yourself, it's important to kind of beef up your skills in art, in writing, in programming, all of those aspects that go into a game, because if it's just you making a game, you're going to be the lead programmer, the lead artist, lead director, lead sound engineer, everything. And so, it's not going to be easy, but you're going to get all of those skills out of it. So practice those skills now. You're not gonna regret it.
Definitely develop a lot.
Stuart thinks that those are sage words, so well done. Any other questions for you, our audience?
I have a question for Brendon. Will we have access to the research that's been done? Because that's impressive to see put out that way.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We'll have to, I'm sure we will. We'll just have to kind of strategize on how to best share that information out. I have a feeling we'll be doing a lot of that pretty soon, though.
Another question. I think this is for students. How much time did you spend creating your game?
Oh, God. A long, long time. making games are not easy. I spent, I'd say from like the week that the competition themes were announced until like the night before it closed, I just worked every single day. I was literally up at like, up until the night that it closed, just working. So
It's crunch time.
It's a crunch time. So you just basically, I worked like the entire, like, what was it, 3 or 4 months?
Very similar for me. I was like, some days I was doing like 8 hours, maybe even 12. Like, it's just, you especially when you're doing it solo, there's this, when you're independent, like Sarah said earlier, you have to develop all those skills. So it's not like you're just building the game, but you also have to develop the skills to build the game, which allows you to make a polished final product.
Yeah, but
so a long time.
If you're doing it and you love it, you don't even notice. Like, you'll spend 8 hours just sitting at your computer making a game, and you won't even notice because you're having so much fun.
Yeah, my work ethic was amazing.
Did you guys find yourselves discovering that you had improved your skills in some aspect of game making during the process so much that then you look back on something you made earlier in the process and had to be like, well, now I got to change. I got to make this better.
Yeah, my game, especially my my optimization with coding, I did it all in Unity using C#. So early on, my optimization, especially the first year, my code was very, as they call it, spaghetti code. It was just everything's everywhere. You can't really make. If I looked back at it now, I don't think I'd know what things do.
Oh my god, yeah. My like pixel art skills have like gone up exponentially. I don't even like looking at the old projects I've made. They're just so ugly. Ugly.
It's ugly. It's just the perspective when you look at it. And I would say, as a teacher, when we introduce the lessons to the time, it's exactly like Sarah, because they start with the process of thinking and designing, but then you say, okay, it's time to submit. They start designing or redesigning and improving and removing until the night before. Actually, I had students email me at 11:59 said, can you help me with this? It's almost midnight. What are you talking about? So yes, the students work throughout. Some students work like Sarah and Koen, that very good. You did it constantly. And some students are like, I got this. And then the week before, like, let me crunch it in. So I think if we can extend those skills that Sarah and Koen said, planning, expanding your timeline, that is super important.
And can I also say the fact that both Sarah and Koen were just so anxious to get back to their game and so committed to working through, my feeling is that education in general should feel like that to students. And we have an opportunity now with everything being shut down to rethink what we owe. And if we reopen with the same thing we had when we shut down, then we've lost such an opportunity to make a change. We've been handed an opportunity for a revolution in education. And there should be this level of commitment and enjoyment for students and teachers across the board. Thank you,
I wholeheartedly agree.
We have a couple more questions here. I think we have time for what I can answer one quickly, and then there's one more for the students. There's a question here from Jeremy about whether the Student Challenge is exclusively digital games or whether it extends to tabletop and analog games as well. The competition is exclusively digital games. However, the curriculum that we're developing for the Student Challenge, the game design curriculum, would definitely be useful if you're looking to teach how to design tabletop and analog games. So it's worth taking a look at. It just might not be able to submit to the competition. And then the last question that I think we have here is for the students. It is from Gerard, and it says, there are a lot of gamers, not as many game developers. What personal quality do you think differentiates the two?
I mean, I'm both a gamer and a game developer, and a good majority of my friends are gamers. A couple of them are not game developers. I have to say, like, the biggest difference is just pretty much like, I don't want to say something like education level, because that just sounds weird, but let me try and make sense of it. Like, if you kind of have that background in like computer science and programming, then it kind of seems easier to make a game. But to a lot of my friends who play games and have never even touched a programming language before, it's a lot easier to just consume it than it is to make it and, you know, put a lot of hard work into it. It's like, you know, why are there so many movies, but there's not as many people wanting to become movie directors? It's because it's easier to just sit back and watch a movie instead of making the movie yourself.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of it in my mind is, I think it's probably the mindset and just the way that people think. Like when I play like Sarah, I also play games and develop them. I don't just look at a game for like the entertainment value. I also look at it for how can I improve my skills. When I look at this game and I'm like, I like this game. Why do I like it? Like, what about this can I take to then improve my game making? So I feel like if you look at everything in life with like constructive criticism, even on things that you don't normally find that in, you can see development in those kind of areas.
And if I can add, I know it's only for the students, but a lot of my students said, I just want to be a game developer because I like to play games. But then when they actually get into the, and the nitty-gritty of things, they say, wait, a game that I love a lot, I don't know, Fortnite, Mario Bros, whatever, wasn't created by one person, was created by a group of people, teams. Now I need to learn how to collaborate and get along with somebody that I don't like. And now I have to learn, I cannot do everything. Because like Sarah said before, yes, all those skills help you in this level of competition. But when you become part of the industry, you have to learn to be part of a team that all of them share ideas. You might be the programmer, you might be the artist, you might be the sound director. So it's not that there are not many game developers, is that nobody really calls themselves game developer, but I'm the art director of this Atari. I'm the programmer of Atari. They are all game developers.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I want to say just one last thing. There's an announcement about the Student Challenge at 4:50 today on the main stage, where we're going to be announcing some new pieces, specifically the National Challenge, also some modifiers to the competition that are really exciting. One a partnership with Numinous Games where we're going to be adding a accessibility category where students can design games that are specifically designed to be accessible for all. So you should check out that announcement if you're interested in learning more about the Student Challenge. And I want to thank all of the panelists and thank the viewers for being flexible with our tech issues. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. This was great.